Hi, my name is Dominic Steavu, and I'm in East Asian Languages and Cultural Studies, as well as Religious Studies. I specialize in Buddhism and Taoism, and I look at those religions from the perspective of religious studies, of course, but also intellectual history and history of medicine. So I'm interested in how religions and healing practices intersect traditionally in China and East Asia a bit more broadly, but also in contemporary settings. So I like to focus on three main areas. The first one is substances in terms of material culture or herbal remedies, mineral, sometimes even animal ingredients and how they interact with the body, but also what kind of spiritual or religious benefits they have. So one example is mushrooms, as well as a variety of other substances like realgar and so on and so forth. So in addition to therapeutic substances, I'm also interested in bodily practices. And these would be, in the context that I'm looking at, primarily physical disciplines that are somewhat similar to yoga, contemporary yoga, but again in a largely East Asian setting, primarily Chinese. So practices such as Daoyin, which involve stretching and breathing control and seated postures very often, and calisthenics in some cases as well. And in connection to these practices that involve the body, I'm also interested in the inner body. So the internal, more energetic plane or spiritual plane, if you want to refer to it that way. And here I like to look at practices of meditation and visualization, as well as breath circulation practices that straddle the border between the physical and the spiritual once again, especially when we're talking about concepts such as qi, which is a vital breath or vital energy. More recently, I've become interested in looking at things from a broader perspective, a more global or cross-cultural perspective. So I look at questions pertaining to reception a lot, the reception of medical knowledge, the reception of certain substances, the reception of modes of self-cultivation that are more tied to religious aspects of the human experience. And I try to tease out the connections or the threads that bring these practices together, while also retracing the steps that they took in their circulation or in their dissemination from one place to another. Again, bodily practices are a good example of this. Practices such as yoga, we see have echoes around the same time in China, also in Tibet. These bodily practices from China, from India, and from Tibet, they get received in early modern Europe and then get transformed into gymnastics primarily. So there's a big movement of physical discipline or self-cultivation that initially starts from this reception or this encounter with these physical practices that come from East and South Asia. So I like to look at how certain notions pertaining to health, healing, and self-cultivation are expressed in Asia or in Europe, for example, and do cross-cultural comparisons. I'm also looking at a history of the connections between the self or the relationship between the self and one's environment. So this goes in a slightly different direction, one that is more geared towards maybe an environmental consciousness or a connection between or a rapport between the self and the immediate environment in which we are evolving or developing in.